Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Guys Trip. My name is Kyle Depius and I'm your host. I've got a guest for you today. This was a really fun conversation. I did something or had a guest on that I normally don't have a guest in this space on. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Tannya Bernadette, and she is a personal stylist, online stylist, and personal shopper. So we got a chance to talk about men's fashion. I've never 250 some episodes in, and we have not talked about men's fashion. So I apologize for that. I should have had this on and this topic on and had Tanya on earlier. She's a new friend to me, newly connected through a mutual friend. And we talked all things fashion, all things style, why you should be interested in it, why you should be paying attention to it, why you should take it seriously, what having a good sense of style and fashion can do for your confidence. And if you guys know, if you've got good confidence, that just has a waterfall effect into your relationships, your work, your business, all those things. And so this was an enlightening conversation. We have wardrobe tips, wardrobe tricks in here. And then we talk about the intersection of fashion and personal growth because Tanya, as a personal stylist, has a unique position where she kind of becomes a confidant for her clients and mostly male clients that she has. She hears a lot about what guys are going through, what they're thinking about, what they're struggling with. And it's no surprise, it's all the same things that we've been talking about here on this podcast. It's loneliness. It is a sense of struggling with thinking you're the only one going through something, all those things. Such a fun conversation. Guys, go check out Tanya's website. Links are in the show notes. If investing in a personal or an online shopper is something that you want to take the jump into, I would encourage you to check out what Tanya does. And without any further delay, here's a fashion conversation with Tanya.
When most people think of a guy's trip, they think of getting away from their families, partying, and doing questionable things with the bros. This is not that. This isn't about a trip. It's bigger than that. It's a movement. This is a community with one intention in mind: to become better men. I'm your host, Kyle Depius. My guests and I will share the tools and strategies that have allowed us to transform our lives, create freedom, and be the men we want to be. If you're committed to growth for yourself and your family, you're in the right place. This is Guys Trip.
I am doing great, just recovering from a cold, but we're here. We did it.
Yeah, same. I feel like it's going around, and our house was knocked down for like a month. So it feels nice to be done with that. Kind of feels like spring is coming. So we're ready to move on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation. I've been waiting for this. So thank you for
Cool.
having me on.
Yeah, well, thanks for taking some time out. We figured out some technical difficulties and all that. So we're gonna rock and roll. And let's start off, Tanya. I'm just gonna ask like some get to know you kind of questions, lightning around style, and we'll start off really easy. Where were you born and where's currently home?
Ooh, you know what? I was born in Edmonds, Washington. It's only 20 minutes from Seattle. And right now I am in Seattle. I still live here after all these years. I am Seattleite.
It doesn't, and the gray and all that stuff, does it get to you? My brother was there for years. He moved to Portland, then Vegas, and now he's got sunshine. But does that grayness get to you, or you kind of feel like it just is what it is?
You know, I feel like I get used to it, but as I'm getting older, I want to move away. But now we have two kids, and it's like, oh my gosh, the family is here to help. So if we move, how are we going to figure that out? I don't want to pay for them to come over and see me all the time. So,
Gotcha. Well, that was my next question. Kids, like, what's the family dynamic for you there?
yeah, we are a blended family. So I recently got married a year ago for the third time. It's going to stick this time. I'm a working woman. I love what I do. And I had one daughter coming in who's 4, and he has an 8-year-old. So now we have two.
A 4 and an 8-year-old. Okay, cool. That's
Yeah.
fun. Let me give you a curveball. If you had to give a TED talk on something that you're not very well known for, what would you like to talk about?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I would talk about overcoming obstacles.
Hmm.
I think in my life, I have had to overcome so much. And a lot of people get scared of that pivot that they sometimes have to make in their life because you know what you want for yourself on the other side, but you can't clearly see it sometimes. So you stop yourself and go backwards every time you want to change. I would do that. I would want to help people see the light on the other side of whatever they want.
I like that. That would be a fun one. Travel. I obviously have a brand called Guys Trip. We love to travel. Where is a place that you really love to travel to?
Tulum is my magic place. I discovered it before it became popular. It must have been like, oh my gosh, maybe 8 years now. And after that, I made a trip with random friends that did not know each other. And I was like, we're going to go to Tulum. We're going to have this trip. You guys have to experience it with me. And we all ended up bonding and getting to see different parts of each other, which was so fun. And I've been there maybe 5 times now, but Mexico in general, it's probably one of my favorite places to go to because in Mexico, like every single city that you go to has different culture, different food, different things that you can do and uncover. So Mexico in general is one of my favorite places to go to.
I love that. Cool. Well, let's talk about maybe the work you do now. I think that'd be fun to kind of get into some of the work you do. I think it's fascinating, and I'll talk a little bit more about it after you kind of introduce what you do. But maybe before you get there, a good jumping off point might be take the listeners and myself on a little bit of a journey and walk us through maybe wherever formal education ended for you, and just from a high level, kind of walk us down the path of getting to where you are now.
It's such an interesting story because I've shared it so many times, but it still feel like I still remember that moment that it happened. I was 22 years old and I recently graduated from fashion marketing and I knew I wanted to become a stylist. I knew especially in Seattle so many people needed help with it. And 15 years ago, getting a personal stylist was not popular. Now people talk about it and they know a bit more of what it is, what it is, how you work with somebody. But back then, it was not a popular thing. It was like a celebrity type, quote unquote, industry. And I was like, I want to help everyday people, primarily women when I started. And I was walking around town here in Ballard. It's like a really cool area with like nice bars and restaurants and cute little boutiques. And I was like, if I could connect with anybody here, who would I want to connect with? Who do I want to work with? And I walked into this hair salon and I loved it. It had like the chandeliers, super fancy. And I was like, I see myself here. And I was like, I can I get my haircut from the owner? I really want to meet who the owner is. And they're like, sure. And they scheduled me. And when I went in, I told her, I was not actually, by the way, but I was telling her, I'm a stylist. I'm looking for an office space. And she turns the chair around and told me that, hey, I'm renting upstairs. Do you want to go check it out? I'm like, sure. And I look at this place and it was like a movie where you scan the room and it's like you see everything come to life, everything that you could create. Had the French doors, it had a view to the city. And within minutes, I signed the lease. At the time I was married, 22 years old, college debt, zero clients, by the way. I was going to be a stylist, but I did not have a client yet. And I go home to tell my husband at the time, I'm like, hey, I signed a year lease for an office space. And he's like, what are you thinking? So I call in and I tell the women, I'm like, hey, did I tell you I was 22? I'm not sure I can do this. And she was like, you are getting your big girl panties on. You signed a lease that is a law abiding agreement and you were going to make it happen. And you told me you knew what you were doing, so you're going to make it work. And I will never forget that day because it changed my life forever. Within 3 months, we ended up filling the space. I got an intern. We called people up to have like some PR. And one of the women that came in from Seattle Magazine ended up being is still my client today. I still work with her 15 years later. So that to where I am now I'm still doing it because I had that push. And now I work with both men and women all different ages, and the business has really evolved as I've really gotten to know the clients more and what they're looking for. When I started, it was like personal shopping. That's what people want. And as I've worked with people, it became much more of a process. It became much more of like a personal growth journey within themselves as well. They weren't just looking for that one outfit to wear.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. So, personal stylist, online stylist, personal shopper is what if someone came across you, that would be a title they would see. But let's unpack that a little bit. But first, I think you said you work with both men, you work with women. Are they middle age? Are they older? Are they young? Is it all across the board? Are they corporate? Are they entrepreneurs? Like, who is the typical client?
You know what? I really wish I could say I have one kind of client. Unfortunately, I don't. I do want to say my clients don't dress like me. Fashion for me is an art. I enjoy dressing up. I'd say the majority of people that work with me are more business casual, weekend wear type people. They
Okay.
just want to feel good in what they're wearing. They want to walk out the door and just feel put together and like they have their life together, which is that correlation is really closely tied, I feel like. Like men, when they come to me, they're like, I just want somebody to see me and see that I could take care of them, that I could take care of myself.
Mm,
So my clients are more business casual, weekend wear casual type of people. I work with a mix of entrepreneurs, a lot of people in tech, people that work in marketing. And the age range, when I started, it was women over 40. And now, for example, last week, I had a client, he's 25 years old, and we're working together. He paid for my services. We're working online because he's 6'4" and can't find clothing in store. So, and I've actually had a lot of clients lately that are like 6'4". So yeah, we work with even young men. I feel like the younger generation are more into taking care of themselves and wanting that personal growth journey starting from the beginning. Whereas before, people were kind of realizing that later in their life, like, oh, there's a disconnect with who I am and how I'm showing up. So I'm really grateful that people are talking more about like mental health and what they want for themselves.
uh, I wish I could show you this photo, Tanya. I was at Menards yesterday. I live in Grand Forks, North Dakota, so not exactly like a fashion capital. However, and I don't mean to talk bad about anyone, but this guy was probably in his mid 50s. Boy, if you could see this, he was in front of me and he had fleece pajamas on of the Cookie Monster. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't, there's fashion faux pas, there's all this stuff. And now you're talking to a guy who I would say that I'm not big on fashion. However, I'm 40, I'll be 44 soon. As I've gotten older, I've looked at fashion and clothing as kind of an extension of my personality. And I've made the commitment with myself that I will never go out and not present something that I wouldn't be proud of at the very baseline. And so it's my rule of thumb. I will never be out in pajamas. I don't care like what time it is. Like that's not how I want to present myself. But I have some questions that I wanted to ask and I wrote them down because like I said, I'm not exactly someone who is into fashion, but I think my interests are changing over time. So indulge me for a couple of these questions, if you will, for a second. What does a man's choice of clothes convey about who he is, or maybe how he views himself?
I feel like when I work with many men, they seem to have things that are very dated. So men want things that are convenient. And when they shop with me, they like to do the whole thing and wear everything to death. So that's how men work. And then they're like, let's do it all over again. So I feel like when men do not keep up with their wardrobe, and you don't have to be into fashion. None of my clients are into fashion. They don't care about it. They're like, just help me shop. What can I wear day to day? But it shows that you are like relevant to the world, relevant and more aware of yourself when you are dressing in a way that things look put together, things are a certain color on you that look well, or things like look like they fit your body well. Putting a little bit of effort just shows like I'm aware of myself and I want to, like you said, I like what you said that if you were, let's say you were to go out and meet somebody in the industry of the work that you do, or a friend of yours or something, if you feel very uncomfortable and like you have to hide because of what you're wearing, then what you're wearing just doesn't feel good and you're just settling. And a lot of men, I find, no offense to men, I find that they tend to settle and they don't want to change their ways and they don't realize it until they see something new on where they're like, oh, well, this works too, but I just haven't put the time into trying something different because I've been wearing my same Levi's for the past like 20 years when there are other pant options that are still denim, but even more comfortable than what they were wearing before.
Yeah. I feel like with guys, and I'll speak for myself, I know what I know, and unless I'm forced into something else, I'm probably not going to actually go out and do that. I need to be pushed in that direction. So I like that. Someone like me, if you're not watching on video, I have a beard. I like to keep facial hair. I'm pretty basic in my wardrobe. But how does someone like me get more into fashion and get more into just being more interested in fashion in my wardrobe? Like how do you get someone like me into that? Because I if it was my choice, black t-shirt, white t-shirt, maybe a gray t-shirt and denim and like I'm good. But I'm starting to lean into some other things. But how do you get guys more interested, curious, and involved in their fashion?
That's a great question. I feel like it's hard to get somebody interested in something when they aren't interested. And like fashion is one of those things that people think that you have to enjoy fashion to look fashionable, which is not the case. I would say something that you can do if you want to explore is definitely go into a store and try something different. When you step into something that is a little bit out of your comfort zone, sometimes you'll be surprised that it ends up being something that you really enjoy. And again, with men, women do this too. When you feel really safe in something, it's hard to be like, why would I try something different? But when you try the different thing, then it kind of clicks like, oh, I get it now. I actually I had a client that he told me, he's like, I know I want to do this for myself. I know it's going to change the way I approach women, how I walk through my life, and even in my career. And he's like, but I don't know if it's going to work for me. And I'm like, okay, well, if you want to do it, we'll do it. So we do it. We do the shopping. I put his outfits together. He writes to me a month later because I created 30 outfits with like 12 to 15 pieces we had purchased. Writes to me a month later and he was like, Tannya, I intentionally wore one new outfit every single day for 30 days. And I did not think I was going to enjoy or even wear the clothing that we got, even though I liked it in the store. And he's like, I feel really good about myself. When I wouldn't go out for a cup of coffee and I would just drink my coffee in the house, now I'm more intentional and I will go out to the coffee shop to get a coffee to see people and try to have a conversation with someone new. So it's interesting, like you don't know until you try it. So it's hard to get into it unless you step into something different.
Yeah, well, you're talking about confidence, I think, and
Oh, yeah.
confidence. We'll get to that in a second, but you had said something, and here's my experience. I think whether you're male, female, you would probably agree with this. The process of going out, and for me, I was recently at down in Minneapolis, jean shopping, and so I picked out, and I had the gal that was there like grab me 4 or 5 different types of denim, and I hated every single one. It didn't fit me right, and I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not even gonna bother. Like I don't even. I'm just not even going to get into it today. And I feel like that happens to people a lot. And me personally, my waist is in between probably a 33, 34, in between a 32, 34 in length. And my quads and my hamstrings are a little bit more athletic, so I can't do any sort of like slim fit stuff. So denim for me is such a sore subject because I cannot stand shopping for it. So, how do you encourage someone like me to get out there and try some different things when I feel like I've done that? I just hate the process of it.
That is a great question. So that's the beauty of working with a personal stylist compared to someone from the store. As a stylist, you really need to get to know the person in front of you. All the little things. So for you, it's like, you know what? I have larger thighs because I'm working out, so the pants aren't fitting. I can't do fitted pants. If you go to a store, of course, they're going to show you what's on trend and what everybody's wearing, but a stylist will know, oh, okay, well, then Little secret I'm going to give you if you haven't tried it before. Find the straight pants that fit your thighs, and then you bring in the waist. I've worked with bodybuilders, and pant shopping in general, not just denim, is so hard for people that are lifting weights a lot. That is the trick. And women know it because women have to do it a lot when they have a smaller waist, but men don't know that trick. So you have to make sure it just fits well in the hip thigh area, and then you bring in the waist and make sure that you like how the cut is on the leg. And it's a simple alteration that gets done. I think the one other thing that's hard, yes, I love that you said, like, oh, I tried something and it didn't work. Not everything, especially with men, because these styles are more simple. It's like t-shirt, button down, blazer, jeans. It is more simple than women's wear. So for men, fit is very important. And a lot of the pieces that you try off the rack are not going to fit you properly. So for men, I feel like knowing that what can be altered and what can't is actually more important than just the fit off the rack. A lot of things, especially men, like one of the men I was recently working with, very thin. Nothing is going to fit him off the rack. So we need the shirts that don't have pleats in the back so they could bring in the seam, but it has to fit in the shoulder. So getting things altered is like key for men.
It sounds like having someone who can do alterations needs to be on my personal board of advisors to help me with all the things. Good. Okay, I gotta keep going. This is really good. I'm learning a lot here. Maybe a tactical one. What are some ways that men can keep kind of a fresh wardrobe?
Fresh wardrobe. This is a good one. Because many men, how I mentioned, they don't like to shop all the time. I like to call it a foundation. I don't like to call it a capsule because a capsule feels like you're stuck in a box and you can't evolve from it. But a foundation, let's say you pick like 4 different colors, the typical for men: navy, beige, black, gray. Focus on those colors in the beginning if you have to keep it simple, and get a few key pieces that you can mix and match from. In a couple months, 2 to 6 months, if you're feeling really good about your pieces and you're ready to add more things, you can add a few more things. So you can slowly maintain your wardrobe if you feel comfortable doing it. You don't have to do it all at once. But that first year that you're really trying to build on your wardrobe, it is good to shop 2 to 3 times because of the seasons. You'll need like boots for, wintertime, and then during summer, stocking up on t-shirts that are short sleeve because during wintertime, you're not going to have as much variety to pick from.
Oh, that's good advice. Does someone's sense of style change over time?
We evolve as humans and our style evolves. So I find with men, it's different than with women. With men, it is your body starts to change with the years going by sometimes. So your style is going to change. Your life ends up changing too. If you get married, have children, end up changing your career. So different parts of your life do change your style, and you'll need to adapt to it. So I always tell people, when you think you found your style, it's not going to be like that forever. Unfortunately, it will switch up a little bit, but some core pieces might still be there. Like maybe if you enjoy really fun things, that might still be at the heart of it, but what you are buying and wearing day to day will change up. So I'd say every like 3 to 7 years, it's good to evaluate again. Like, is this still working for me, or has my life changed and now I feel like I'm the me from like 5 years ago instead of who I am now, where I'm going?
I like that. I would agree. We go through seasons in life, and I think that our tastes and our style and things like that evolve as we go through it. And think of how much, like in our age groups, think of how much changes in life. To your point, there's marriage, maybe there's kids, you're working way up a corporate ladder, or you're starting a business, or whatever it might be. There's so much change that happens, and your fashion and your wardrobe should change with it. Last question. You talked about confidence before, but some of your clients that come to you, talk to us about the evolution of maybe a little bit hesitant, like, is this the right thing to do when they come to you? And then maybe 3, 6 months later, what's the transformation like for a client?
There are so many. So like the story I shared of that client that was going out. I feel like a lot of my stories have to do with coffee. I don't know if it's because I'm in Seattle and there's Starbucks and it's cold, but that client that said like, I go to the coffee shop now because he feels good about meeting somebody and wants to talk to them. I have another client I was working with who is he's like a 2X, and when we were working together, he initially thought he wanted really neutral pieces. And then he realized, no, my personality's loud, but I think like I've been suppressing that because of my weight, but I'm tired of waiting to be myself again. And so we got to explore some more fun pieces. And he said that he wrote to me the next day after he wore one of his new outfits and he was in line at the coffee shop at Starbucks. And the woman in front of him started a conversation with him. He didn't even have to initiate. And he's like, I must have just held myself differently. I must have like grabbed attention and somebody like noticed me. And he was so happy about that. And then I also do work with clients that in the beginning, they feel like there was a client that I remember that he was like, I don't like to stand out. I kind of want to be that person that's in the background. But then through months of working together, he ended up realizing that he just didn't feel good about himself when we started. And then now he's wanting to explore more colors. He came back, he's like, I actually want to add new colors. I want to try a print. I felt like maybe I was just using that as an excuse to be in the background. But now that I'm feeling better about myself, I actually want to step out and wear different things and meet new people. So there are a lot of different stories about people sometimes coming in being like shy or wanting to like not stand out in their fashion and then realizing actually I do feel good standing out a little bit. And maybe I just wasn't doing it because I wasn't wearing the right thing that made me feel good to want to talk to people because I feel like people are judging me or whatever it is that goes through people's minds.
Yeah, or maybe they don't know how. Like I could see myself in that story. I have a good friend who likes to wear hats, like fedoras and things like that. And I was like, "Yeah, I think I kind of like to too, but I don't even know where to start. So I'm just, I'm gonna, like most guys, I'm just gonna keep it at an arm's length because I don't really know how to do it. I don't know where to start. So I guess I'll just leave it unexpressed. And I think fashion and clothing can really help someone express themselves and who they are in just such a fun and unique way. And I think sometimes guys aren't willing to do that. But now what I want to talk about, because I think you're in such a unique position to have conversations with people and maybe even, I kind of call it like the stranger almost effect, where you don't really know someone too well, but for whatever reason you feel comfortable like telling them your life story and shining lights on maybe parts of someone's life that maybe hasn't had a light shined on it in a while. How does the work that you do and fashion intersect with personal growth? Because I can kind of see you playing, yes, your title it says personal stylist, but I bet you it's also kind of like a therapist slash a life coach slash a confidant. How do you see that interacting, and why do you think that is? Why do you think people feel so comfortable just sharing everything about their life with you? Maybe it's your personality and maybe that's it, but maybe there's something more to it. I don't know.
I feel like it's a mix. I feel like in the beginning, when I started my business, it wasn't so open. And I think I was a little closed off too. But with my own personal growth journey and the evolution of the business, people have been able to open up more as well. And it's so easy going into somebody's closet through Zoom or in person and shopping and
Will you
having this.
really do that? You take Zoom when someone goes through your closet?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
Because I
cool.
do this virtually too. I do this virtually and I do it in person. And
Cool.
people are always a little hesitant or nervous at first.
Yeah.
Like, is she gonna
Yeah.
judge me? What is she gonna say? Is she
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
throw everything out? So I think that's already like from the beginning, you kind of have to get vulnerable. And I'm asking questions of really getting to know you. And so as the process goes and people are trying things on, they start realizing different things about themselves. Like, oh, I didn't realize as we went through our closet, I really got stuck in wearing black because it felt safe. Or there's one client, he was like, I had pink and purple and all these random colors because my ex-wife told me I look good in everything, but I don't like any of that. And I've never had a voice to be able to say that. And he's like, do you like it? I'm like, I don't like it if you don't like it. Let's try something different. Let's try something that feels like you now. So with some men, they start realizing like, oh, I had things passed down to me. I wasn't making my own decisions. There was a client I worked with that it was so interesting. He came to me because he had recently gotten divorced. They had a son together. His son loved to wear pink. And he was like, I realize that I don't even take care of my, like how I look. And my son wants to explore different fashion choices, but I'm not even setting an example for him. So he's like, I'm doing this for my son to see that I can be bold and step into taking care of myself now that I'm divorced. But I also want him to see that a man can decide how he wants to dress and doesn't need to just wear whatever random thing was passed down to him from his wife or just throw something on to get out of the house. It was so beautiful hearing that. But every client comes to me with one thing and then it ends up being a little bit more as we go through the process.
That's funny. I think you said the word in there that's probably the magic word. It's vulnerability. And I think when you allow someone really into their life, into their house, into their closet to see some selections that maybe were conscious or subconscious or really no thought to it, you're really exposing yourself to here's who I am, and maybe here's my thinking process, and maybe some of my insecurities. What do you see? Obviously, this is the podcast Guys Trip, and it's guys in their 30s and into their 40s who are adventurous and they're driven, but they're struggling maybe with camaraderie and finding like brotherhood and friendship with other like-minded men. Are you seeing a similar trend maybe of lone wolfing, of loneliness, of maybe lack of connection and camaraderie and friendship? Like, what are you seeing among some of your male clients?
I hate to say it, but I almost feel like sometimes men, not saying all men, but many men at that age want a relationship because they don't have friendships of people that they can just hang out with and connect with. And they think that having a woman in their life is going to give them all the things that they need. And when I work with men, also the way that they open up with me sometimes ends up feeling like, oh my gosh, have they not talked about this with anybody else? Because after they begin opening up, it's interesting. Then they just start talking about all the things. And it's like, as a woman, women get together all the time. We get together for happy hour. We talk about all the things. We have a problem. We're texting, calling each other up. Men do not do that enough. Men do not want to, I guess, overwhelm other men or might be embarrassed of opening up about something because it's a lot of surface level things going on, but they really want to do it more. And I see it with my clients. Here in Seattle, I'm not sure in other areas, but something that happens here is, especially in the tech industry, when I have clients that come and move here from the East Coast or Europe or someplace where they were dressing up more, they feel a little bit isolated because they feel like if they're not dressing casual enough, then people are kind of blocking them out. So trying to fit in, I think, is also a thing that men struggle with as well in different parts of their lives that they want to fit into or the communities that they want to fit into. And it makes me sad that some people think that to fit into a place, I have to dress a certain way. And sometimes they do come to me and they're like, I need to learn how to dress down a little bit because I'm not feeling accepted. I'm feeling like they're excluding me because they think that I'm too dressed up for their environment and activities that they want to do. And they're like, I like to hike too. I like to travel, but I also like to dress up and take care of myself.
Yeah, it's like you're having to mute your personality and who you are in order to fit in. And that just makes me sad to hear that. And I don't know. I don't feel, I mean, here in Grand Forks, we're dressing up with Cookie Monster pajamas for pants. So I have to dress up here apparently, but, I don't, I hear from guys a lot is I'm busy. Maybe you hear these same things, right? I'm busy. I don't want to be a burden to other people. And so like calling a friend and saying, "Hey, do can you meet for coffee or something and chat? Like I've got something I just need to share." We don't want to be a burden to other people. And then in some instances, guys, honestly, I mean, I moved around a bit in life physically. And each place I go, I find it harder and harder to find friends because people kind of have gotten into their routines. They've gotten into their friendship groups, and finding new friendship groups is hard. Do you see that among some of your clients as well? You mentioned some people moving from the East Coast and moving from Europe or whatever it might be, and they're moving into a community where people already have their friendships and it's hard to break in. Is that something that you see that some of your clients are experiencing too?
Yeah. Some people come to me because they want to make more friends. And I also find that some people just feel like I see this with a lot of different people. They get stuck in old friend groups that they grew out of because they don't want to. It feels uncomfortable, like you said, texting, calling people up. And I think it's important if somebody is feeling that, just kind of breaking that barrier and doing the thing, even if it is uncomfortable, because it might open up the door of them coming back and being like, oh, they called me up one time. Maybe I should call them up when something's going on. It is hard to do. I think even for women growing up and, nowadays trying to make relationships with people that you don't really connect with. But when you do find that person that you connect with, just calling them up, sending a text, that's always easier too.
Yeah, well, I think vulnerability is just an invitation. It's an invitation for someone to reciprocate that. And it takes courage, especially for guys, I think, to go first, but someone's got to go first, And I think if someone can do that, I think that's true manhood is being someone who's willing to be vulnerable and say, hey, I'll go first. I'll be the first one to do this and to open up the door and create the invitation for someone. So I think that's really cool. Well, I want to just be sensitive of your time. I really enjoyed the conversation around fashion and how the fashion and the personal growth are connecting for you, and they're intersecting in these really fun and unique ways. But if someone is kind of interested and maybe they're curious about what it looks like to have a personal stylist, an online stylist, can you talk to us about like what does that look like? How does someone kind of maybe get interested in your services and all that stuff? How does that work for you?
The best way is going to my website, myclosetedit.com. On there, you can look through, there's different videos and blog posts, but doing a clarity call, it's a 20-minute session where we just talk through what you've been struggling with, what your goals are, where you're at, it's a huge opening to see like what is possible. So I like to share the process that we go through and kind of see how we can change things for you. And that 20-minute clarity call is completely free. And it's me personally doing it. I used to have somebody else do it, but I really like to get to know the clients beforehand. And I found it was so weird when they passed them to me. So it's me on the call that you get to talk to. And I only have openings 2 days a week for those, but it's the best way to connect. And I love connecting with my clients over Zoom. So it's a Zoom call where we get to talk through everything.
Do you make that 20-minute Zoom call, have someone show you the closet, or is that later on?
That's later on.
Okay, all right, I was gonna
Talk about, yeah, we do talk about the brands and where they've been stuck, where they've been shopping. So yeah, you get a lot within the 20 minutes.
That's cool. Okay, well, I can put some links into the show notes so you guys are listening and interested and curious, go check that out. I think my current favorite brand right now is Filson. Isn't Filson in Seattle?
You know what, in the very beginning of our conversation, I was going to tell you, Filson is like the brand here. Yes, I can totally see you as a Filson guy. The glass blowers here love Filson, and all their gear is from Filson.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they've got a store in Minneapolis where I was shopping for denim. I told you the story.
Uh-huh.
And there's an older gal that is a store manager. I love her. She's so sweet. And I'm normally a large in everything else. And when I go, it's medium and it fits me extremely well off the rack. But it just, I mean, I've got a beard, I'm rugged, I'm outdoors. Like that is the brand for me. And so I'm not here to advocate for Filson, but when you said Seattle, I was like, I think Filson's in Seattle.
It is.
Do you have other brands that you love?
For you, I see Filson, I see Timberland as another one. Their boots and their gear is just really nice. Those are the top two, I think, for you. But for every client, I literally shop everywhere. So it's different with everyone I work with.
So you don't have like a partnered brand that you can't get anywhere else. It's only online with personal stylists. You work with any and every brand. Okay, cool. That's
Yep.
good to
So
know.
you're not limited. Because when you work with one company, it kind of sucks because if it doesn't really work for your fit, your style, it's like you're kind of stuck with that. So I literally shop everywhere for people.
Oh, that's cool. It's good to know. Well, you guys listening, go grab the links in the show notes and go check out Tanya's website and maybe give yourself a little upgrade in this category of life, because I think it's going to bring you confidence. And I think when men are walking around with confidence, they just feel better about their work, about their relationships, and everything. So I can see the trickle down and the waterfall effect that confidence has in a man's life.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Tanya. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for listening. If you got any value out of today's episode, make sure to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. If you're interested in joining us on a guys trip and being part of our community, check out all of our upcoming trips at guystrip.co. I'll see you on an adventure soon.